Welcome to this video covering the introduction to Agility database. Feel free to pause the video and rewind if necessary if you wish to review any of the points that I discussed throughout the video. Agility database is a fully relational database. It incorporates lookups, calculations and posting between the tables. Before we discuss the program in detail, I'd just like to cover the installation of the program. It is downloadable in the form of a self-extracting exe file. There are entries made into your program area for the program to run, and in addition there are entries made underneath your documents directory. The name of the directory is Agility Database, and within that directory there's a further subdirectory called Templates. And the templates subdirectory contains examples for you to use in evaluation. We will be discussing the examples business and then the examples personal databases. In addition, you have clean versions of these particular examples without any existing records. And finally, there is a completely clean database with just the system files. Just back to that main directory again, I draw your attention to these two exe files. The standard full version of Agility Database plus a runtime version. Now that runtime version is suitable for distribution to your clients if you want to maintain the integrity of the structures of your tables. You distribute that version. Also included is a freeware HTML editor for constructing emails. I will discuss that in detail in the email area. And finally, just a reference to the README text file down the bottom of that directory. It does give you information that I'd like you to have a look at. It's an optional read at the end of the installation. I make reference to the help file, and I'd ask you to have a good read of that, and also a little reference to the freeware editor. Just remember that there is no load button, but there is an insert text button, which is the equivalent of a load button. You do have the save button, however, and once you've completed editing, use the get source button to copy the code into the clipboard. When you close the editor, that code will be inserted into the body of your email by the use of the paste code button within the Agility database program. And finally, just a reference to the support forum, which is on the website. I'll ask you to use that for any help or support issues. Just back to the program itself now. This is the program having just been opened. It does have the business example preloaded. Table list is down the left hand side. You can see the blue headers. This is completely configurable, and when you set up your own system you can nominate your own names for the various groups of tables. Today we'll be discussing the tables, then the records, then charting, printing and finally emailing. So in this particular highlighted section, tables, the second level menu is context sensitive and it relates to the top level selection. We have table selected. The first item is new table. Self-explanatory. If you create a new table, it will go to the bottom of your table list. So just use that scroll bar on the right to go down to the bottom. So any new tables will go down below payroll. If you wish to insert a table, it's similar to creating a new table, but you're inserting it within the list as it exists. So we highlight customers and click on insert. We get a table between quotation detail and customers. To edit a table, it's a matter of selecting and then clicking on edit table. That will give you the existing table structure and allow you to add or delete or reorder fields. If you have existing records, they will be automatically adjusted to accommodate the edited fields. If you wish to delete a table, use this button. You will be asked for a confirmation prior to deleting any individual table. Next item is table relationships, and that brings into play the system tables. They are by default hidden in your list of tables, but you can enable them with this checkbox here. And if you do enable it there, the functions relating to tables are available to these system tables. So we'll just leave it hidden for the moment because they will be automatically referenced in your day-to-day use by the use of this button. So we click on table relationships. We'll use invoice detail as a good example. We'll look at lookup files, and this details all the lookups associated with this invoice detail file. Just use one example for each system table. In this situation, the invoice detail table looks up the selling price based on the product name. It sources the related table of products, brings in the sell price, and the related key name is the name of the product. We'll just back out of that. And by the way, just whilst we're on the subject of these table definitions and lookup and posting and calculation tables, at the bottom of your help file you have a full list relating to the examples. There's the business database example, and beneath that there's the lookups, calculation and posting rules for the personal example. So that's a good source of reference if you're looking at how to achieve these table relationships. Just back to the main program itself, onto calculation rules. We'll look at this highlighted one within invoice detail, the net sell total after discount. We'll just widen that column by going up to the header and dragging the double-headed arrow. The net sell total after discount is based on the net sell total minus the discount total. Now, the discount total being taken from the discount rate calculation. Discount rate being brought in through your lookups table from the customer table. Just back out of that one, and finally the posting rules. Quite a big list for posting rules, particularly from this invoice detail table. I'll select this particular record because it does bring up an interesting example. The invoice detail table is posting to the general ledger, and it's the relationship is defined by a particular record name within general ledger. Now, if you're going to define a particular record by name, you need to enclose that name, whether it be an account number or account name, within single quotes. And you'll notice that there's a number of these single quote entries, and they all relate to general ledger, where we are posting to specific accounts within general ledger. Normally the relationships are defined by key fields, but in the case of general ledger we want to post values of transactions to particular tables, so hence the single quote. So you can see this one, net sell total after discount, goes into accounts receivable within the general ledger, which happens to be the account key within that related table, and of course the balance is being updated by being added to the current value. Just a quick look at another one. The tax total goes into the general ledger account called tax payable. And just cancel out of posting rules. Final button under these table relationships button is the rebuild posting rules. Now, when you first design your table relationships, having just designed the table definition, you may occasionally set up incorrect fields and items will be posted into the wrong field. One way of recovering the situation is that, having corrected your mistakes, you can redo all the posting automatically by this particular button here, and that will go through, do the correct lookups, the correct calculations, and post to the correct fields. So just be aware that that facility is there within the program. We'll just go back to our list of tables. We've discussed table relationships. The protect single table does as it says. It will protect a single table. Now, this will become quite apparent when we look at the personal examples, where we want to protect sensitive information such as passwords, usernames, bank, credit card numbers, and maybe PIN numbers and the like. So I'll cover that when we get to that personal tables example. Backup and restore all tables does as it says also. It will back up your whole group of tables down here with or without password protection. And you will get that prompt on exit of the program, but there is a means of disabling the prompt as well. And that brings us to the settings for the overall database, which is this last button, and it will bring up just a single record with all your settings contained in it. This information here relates to items that will be printed on your invoices. And whilst we're on the subject of invoices, I can show you an example invoice, and it gives you an idea of the actual power of the program itself, because it will create invoices, purchase orders and quotations. So you can see on the sample invoice, subject to you conforming to the requirements for the invoice, such as particular table names and particular formats, it will generate an invoice, and here's an example invoice where your own particular details from the setup table have been brought in, your customer details from the customer table, and your invoice lines from the invoice lines table. So you've got your unit sell price, your totals out the right hand side, subtotals, your discount, your tax, grand total plus any payment on the day, and finally that thank you for your business comes back, and that's taken from your settings file, this particular line here. I'll just come back and discuss these couple in a moment, because we will make use of this to change to the other example. Just a bit on emails. You'll need your email details in there, in particular your host settings to use the email system. The host settings are applicable for Gmail, but if you're using a different server you will need to change it. Finally, your registration code after purchase will unlock all the features. At the moment you have the full version of the program on download is limited to 30 records per table, and the runtime version is restricted to just the two examples that we have that I have included in the evaluation version. If you do create your own tables, the runtime version will detect that change and will not work for your own creations. It's still limited to the full version of 30 records per table. Now, I just mentioned that I'd leave 3 of these for further discussion. The template to be used, we're going to change that to the examples personal. I'm going to change the default data directory from just Agility database into another directory. So we'll go into documents, select Agility database, but I'm going to make a new subfolder underneath that, and we'll call that personal. We'll enter that, so we now have a new folder under Agility database called personal. So that's where this example is going to be posted to. Now you can work with a memory stick. You can nominate the memory stick as the new directory, new hard drive, a new subdirectory anywhere on your system. So that's where you change your default data directory. I mentioned the option to show or hide data, the option to show the saved data on exit prompt. You can disable that by simply changing that to no. The program title can be changed. You can have your own creations where you distribute your programs. You can put your own branding on the name of the program. Now, I'm just going to change that for the purpose of the exercise. Because we're going to the personal example, I'm just going to give it a different name, and you'll see why I've named it this name in a moment. I've changed to My Life Organised so that when we run this program in the future, that will be the name that comes up. So having changed the template, the default data directory, and the program title, we'll just click on Save Record. 3 options for saving. We're going to either copy the template files over, which we're going to do, changing that to 1. Just copy the current files if you just want to create a new directory with your current files. And 3 is to copy nothing, just to create the directory. So I'll click on OK. You can see now that we've changed the list of files, we've changed the name of the program. You can put your own personal branding on the database. Within this list of tables now, and this is why we're calling it My Life Organised, because it handles every aspect of your personal, or just about every aspect of your personal life in terms of organisation. You have a diary, you have a to-do list, have a list of contacts, and they can be categorised. Concepts is a table to organise your thoughts for future plans. Everybody needs a documentation on their travel plans. confidential information we've touched on a moment ago. List of transactions for personal finance, the related accounts and related suppliers of services, your categories of expenditure and income, and investments portfolio, watch list portfolio for possible future investments, potential purchases, that's like your wish list. You've got some fitness records where you break down your fitness records, relate them to routes if you're running or jogging, walking, sections of your route, and workouts. Now, workouts can include static exercises such as weights, exercises on the spot, but it all fits into that fitness area. Some information on home inventory, and finally, quite a powerful website categorizer. You can categorize all the websites you visit on the basis of category and subcategory, so it gives you a little bit more order than your bookmarks within your browser, and you can access the websites with a double click on the website from within Agility database. For the moment, we just work on the transactions file. Now, to bring up a list of records, you can either double click on the name of the table or highlight the name of the table with a single click and click on records, and that will bring up a list of transactions or records within that particular table that you highlight. Similar to tables, there's an option to create a new record, which will go down at the end of your list of current records. You can insert a record. We highlight that and click on insert. New record will be inserted at that point. We'll just cancel the insertion for the moment. Edit a record, whatever's highlighted will be edited. Now, if we look at this area out on the right hand side, which is the input section for records, you can see a group of boxes out on the left hand side. Now, if you select any of these with a tick, those values will be maintained when you insert new records. So it just saves a bit of extra typing when you're creating new records, which are repetitive. So, for instance, if you're creating new records on the day, you might choose to retain the date and retain the account if you're using one account primarily. With the particular input boxes, some of them have the down arrow. That relates to tables that you have designed as lookup tables. So with the account table, we have a list of accounts which have been designed as lookups. Just be aware of the top entry, which is save new entry. You can, within this input box, you can put your own particular value, and having typed in a new value there, if you click on save entry, a new account will be added on the fly. So say if you're having to go out of your transaction table into your account directory to create a new account, you can actually do it without leaving the transactions table. And of course that applies to any drop down area with the save new entry at the top. Just back out of that, delete record, self-explanatory. You will have a confirmation again. Sorting of records, two ways to sort records. You can either click on the table header to get an alphabetical list. Click again, you get a reversed list. Same applies to any particular column. There is a further method of sorting, and we'll drop down. By the way, if you select that, that's similar to selecting the header on a particular column list. Advanced sort we want to look at, and this gives you multi-level sorting. So select advanced sort, we'll do a sort on account and a second level sort on category. So you can see that's in blue, that's in red, relating to level 1, level 2. When we run the sort now, we have account being the first level, category being the level underneath it. You can see in the title bar, you have the sort by account and category. Just backing out of that, the next item is filter. If you click on the filter button, you have two different types of filter. The filter by selected value is just a matter of selecting a particular value and then the button, and you'll just get that particular value showing no other records other than all the records relating to Office Mart. Cancel that filter. We look at the advanced filter button. I'll just reselect that for a moment. Back into advanced filter, and you can see here that we have a number of filters defined, Each set of filters will be defined by a common name. Whatever record you select, it will run the filter that is out on the left hand side. So we have 3 entries for the test 1 filter and 2 entries for the test 2 filter. You can create your own filters by simply adding conditions and giving a different name under filter name. Look at this first test. We've got a filter on credit equals 0, so that will filter out all the credit transactions, and the date being greater than the 1st of June. Whilst we're on the subject of dates, you can set up your dates with the day, the month, the year, the month, the day, the year, or the year, the month, and the date. That is set up within your table definitions. So we have 2 conditions and a further line which designates your sort field, and that can have any number of levels for sorting as well. So we'll just go ahead and run that filter. You can see now we only have records after the 1st of June, and we have no credit records. So the requirement was credit equals 0, and that particular filter is listed up the top. So the filter is credit equals 0 and the date, and that is a system-wide designation for dates, but the date is greater than the 1st of June 2019. The sort criteria is sort on date. Now look, I'd ask you to have a look at the forum, and I will discuss sorting in more detail on the forum, and it is very, very powerful. There's an unlimited number of filters you can apply to your tables. Just go ahead and cancel filter. Looking at total columns now, that's also very powerful, and this will bring in a little bit more context to the power of the program. So I'll click on total columns. Notice when we click on total columns, we have 2 break fields. We'll select account as the first break field and select category as the second break field. And we'll look at totals for the debit field. We want the sum. We'll look at a sum for the credit field, and in the details field, we'll just do a count of records. Now, having designed the 2 break fields, it can only be 1 break field. You can just break it by category if you like. We'll total the selected columns. I'll just go through, and now the columns have been subtotaled. The second level sort is on category, so I'll have the category broken down into the various categories. And once we're finished with the categories within that particular account, we might have missed it there. There's the figures, the total for that particular account. And by the way, there's 73 records in the cash account. Now, obviously, there's still a lot of records being displayed. You can just narrow that down by show totals only. You can see now that we just have all the subtotals for the categories and totals for the individual accounts. So at this point, it's probably timely to have a look at charts. If I click on charts at this stage, you can see that what we have is a breakdown of the totals for the various accounts. There's no point in looking at a graph of 1,000 records, because you just have a whole lot of lines which are meaningless. But once you start breaking down the records into various categories and subtotals, the charts come into their own power. And we have a bar chart by default. You can change that to a pie chart. By the way, these colours are random. If you don't like the colours, and bearing in mind you can do a window print at any time, you can just click on it again and change the colours. So that's quite a random set of colours. Same with the bar charts. Just click on it again, you'll get a different set of colours. There's a half-screen version of both graphs where you just display the individual detail on the left-hand side. If we cancel out charting, just by the way, whilst I'm there, the whole window can be taken out to the full size of the screen. It will expand, obviously, the size of your graphs and your records being displayed. We can't do much to show that within the window itself, but we will have a try. You'll probably lose a lot of the detail, but we'll just have a look at it. You can see now that you're just seeing part of the graph, but the graph will resize to the size of the available screen that you have. We'll just cancel charting, and I'll just go back to our list of tables. look at transactions. I just wanted to cover printing. You can print the table itself. You can also print the current window. You can print an invoice, and if we look at this print invoice, just to remind you, I think I had a list here. That is your print invoice list. It can be colorized automatically. There is a colorize button on your rich text editor, which we use internally for emails, and it will give the option to colorize your invoice. We'll just back out of that. I'll just rerun that program. And you can notice it probably happened fairly quickly there, but when you back out of the program, you will get that prompt to save your data on exit, and then you can either save it with or without a password. Onto this emailing section, you can see that the email editor that pops up is a standard editor. You can either type in plain text there, you can type in rich text, but the rich text will not be interpreted for emails, and that is why I have included a HTML editor. It's a freeware editor. When we click on that button, that particular editor will be automatically run. I did mention that there is no such thing as a load button. There is a save button, but the insert text button does perform the same function as load. So if we were to load an existing HTML file, I'll just change that to HTML, and we'll just bring in an example I created. You can see you can work with images within the HTML editor. When you're finished with it, you can either resave it, or if you make any changes, save anything which is in HTML format. Just remember that if you're going to close off the editor but you want to use the contents of the HTML editor, you will need to click on the Get Source button before you exit the editor. Just a message to say it's been copied to the system clipboard. Click on OK, close the editor. When I click on Paste from Editor, that information comes into the body of your email. Now, as far as your recipients go, if you highlight any email fields that contain email addresses, whether it be one or a group of cells, these cells will be automatically brought into your email editor. And if you wish, they will initially be brought into the recipients column, just separated by commas, but if you wish to put most of them down into the carbon copy or blind carbon copy section, just highlight them, cut them out of there and put them into that section there. And finally, just don't forget your subject line there, and any attachments, use that button there and you will have your attachments listed. Providing you set up your emails through the through the settings area, you will then send your email and you'll have a message to say that your email is in progress and has been successfully sent. Just a quick note on help, there's obviously the PDF manual which we have referenced a number of times, and also this video which is available through the menu. Finally, your exit button, which we touched on just a moment ago. There's an option to save the data prior to exit with or without a password. If you save data and exit without a password, you will get a confirmation that the data files have been successfully saved and they are saved in zip format, but there's no password protection. So that's just an issue so that you have a backup copy. But just remember that backup copy is not password protected. To password protect, you will need to put in the password with the confirmation. And we'll just exit out of the program now. That completes the tutorial at this stage. I will cover more of the options in further detail with other videos, and also use the forum to raise some extra help points. So please use the bulletin board, and I look forward to input from you on that particular forum, and thank you for your attention.